The Queen visited 9 days later, a young mother and a young monarch. Aberfan has never forgotten that visit, nor the promise she made on that day to never forget them.
It happened soon after morning classes had begun at the school. Sodden with rain, undermined by the mountain springs which ran beneath it, the enormous refuse tip from Aberfan's coal mine lost its footing on the steep slopes above the village, and a black avalanche slid onto the houses and the school below. When the days of digging were over, the list of the dead had reached 144. 116 of them were children between the ages of 8 and 10.
The 1st Battalion of the King's Own Royal Border Regiment. My regiment is the best regiment in the British Army, the 4th most senior regiment in the British Army. It has amalgamated now to the Duke of Lance, but still, it's still the 4th most senior regiment. The only ones that are more senior are the Guards. Regardless to whether that regiment lives on, the soldiers live on with that regiment to the day they die. My regiment will have been stationed nearby and on spearhead for anything that happens in Great Britain within a 6-month period. So that's why they were called out, because they were 1st standby regiment. It wouldn't matter if they were 200-300 miles away, because they're the 1st standby battalion, they get called in first.
They had the MPs running around Exeter trying to find the regiment, you know, because it was an immediate call out thing, you know. But it was all, the regiment was just all over the place. Some was in Taunton. They just, lads went out all over boozing. That's all it was about it. But I was in a pub called The Lamb. The coppers came in. Any King's Own Border in here? Yeah. What do you want? Get out. And he just told us, and you needed back at camp straight away. And at the time we all thought, oh God, I think we're shooting us away for a war or something. That's how it sounded like, you know, you've got to get back to camp now. And then that's when we found out there was the CO, Bill Scott, had read a signal out on the parade ground, and he said we're all good. We've been Southern Commanders deployed us to Aberfan, told us what it was about, and that was it.
It was a bit of excitement at first because we didn't really know it had happened. So one or two people spoke a few things about it, but we had no TV in the rooms when we were down there. Television was in an offie. The only trouble with that room was about 40 blokes trying to watch it at the same time, like, you know. Who wants to watch with mother with everybody else, like, you know, and it didn't really go in much. And the only time we found out about it, we were actually doing, was when our platoon commander came running in, a guy called Chris Warren, all excited that we're being sent to Aberfan. I thought, was that? What the hell? Didn't really know until we started being given information about it and what was happening. We had to travel. We were stationed in a place called Honiton in Devon, so we had to travel back up the country into Wales to do it. I think it took about 4 or 5 hours to get there. I suppose one of the worst things is we were travelling down and excited, getting closer, going into it. Never been to Wales as a Wigan lad. I think the farthest I ever went was to Carlisle once, and I was about 17. The furthest I'd ever been. And we were travelling down and we were in the back of a Bedford, and somebody saying, oh, we're getting close now, like, you know, to it. And so we were looking at the front of the Bedford, and we came round the corner and looking across the valley, All beautiful green hills everywhere and that, and it looked like somebody had done a paint and then put their hand on it and just gone whoosh, down the middle. And it's a big black mark all the way down, and you can see it virtually going all the way down into the village. And we were on the other side of the valley coming down into it.
There was none of it cleaned up. It was a mess. All the streets were covered in soot, and the slag heaps, the roofs were covered in it, the houses were covered in it, the pubs had all their, I think there was only 2 pubs, and they, all the stock that they had was written off. So if you went for a drink, it was free, you know. But it was a mess, it was a complete mess. The school was absolutely demolished.
We did everything from start to finish. 3 platoon A company, they went straight in. It was dark, and it was dark, so it was the evening when we went in, and we were put to redirect the stream which was going underneath the slag heap, which caused the landslide in the first place. And while we were redirecting it was still moving, so it was quite a frightening event. Aberfan was the most. It was horrible. We were recovering bodies and things like that. It was terrible.
I think they'd recovered all but 3 bodies. They were looking for, I think it was the farmer and his wife and daughter, I think it was. They had been taken, the farmhouse. They took that out, but mainly they knew where all the other bodies were. But it had actually shifted the farmhouse. It was a job, and we were given to do, and we got on with it, and we were kept busy all the time. We were doing a lot of admin work as well, going around, and we also we used to do a stag up on one of the other slag heaps that was still there. It seems strange this now. We were sent up there with a radio to radio down if it started to move, and you're thinking, hang on a minute, I'm on top of this, and if it starts to move, like, you know, I think they'll know it's coming, like, you know. So it was, you know, it seemed a silly thing to do at the time, but it was just one of the things they did. And they had us doing all other admin jobs. There was a lot of moving stuff around. I suppose one of the saddest things was some of the jobs the lads were doing was keeping onlookers out. You know, coming in, picking trophies up, whatever they were picking up, you know, just to pinch things. And I suppose the only ones that who really did get upset was the one that were helping out in the mortuary. They didn't let the younger ones go in there.
No, there wasn't any happy times, not really. And the amenities centre across the road from there is what used to be it was I think it was a chapel that was turned into a morgue, and that's where I was working with the MO and that. I was cleaning the bodies up. Me and Ian Western, he's not with us anymore now. It was Ian Western and another lad, and we were cleaning their bodies up, getting them ready for the inspection and that, you know. And then the bloke came in from an authority, and he was with a mill board, and he was checking the bodies, and then he was throwing coffins out there because they weren't good enough. No, you're not burying no child in that. And they went straight onto a wagon, and they were took down to an engineering firm where they threw them into a fire and destroyed them. He wouldn't accept them. But the bodies had to be made clean and presentable for the inspection, and the last man to work on them was the dental officer. Oh, it was a mess, terrible. It really was bad. Men and women running about crying and screaming their heads off.
It took a long time to clear. Digging the graves, the big terraces, the graves which have got archways on now. Really beautiful place, really beautiful place. and they've got a garden of remembrance which is set up the same as the school building. It's just the foundations of the building, but they're all there with different things going on. Really, really good.
All that's left there now, the school, is a memorial site, and it's not much really. It's like a couple of brick walls, and it has there is a lawn, which is something like 14 foot square, and it's got 3 trees in it, and each tree is dedicated to something, like, you know. It's one of those places you know you've got to go to just to see it. If you've read about it, you need to see it to believe what they've said about it.
All people think about the armed forces, be it Navy, Army or the Air Force, is that they are there for the war. They don't think that they're there for every task. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it be comforting someone who's lost loved ones, the refugees who have been on boats. You're there for that as well. It's just not publicised. It does affect soldiers. There's more soldiers nowadays diagnosed with PTSD than ever before, but what a soldier has that other people don't have, they have the ability to talk through events with other soldiers that have been there, done it and lived through it. It helps.
You think about it. I mean, I think about it sometimes every day. You know, it's in the back of your mind all the time. You know, you can break down through it. You know, I try and hold it together a lot. You know, but sometimes I don't. A bit like now, you know.
Well, at the time, yeah, we all cried. We all cried over that. For what we saw. I mean, we're grown men, but we cried. We've got feelings, and we cried. And I still think of it a lot now and then. You know, it still comes back.
Never seemed to really talk about it with anybody because when we left there, we went to Bahrain and then to Aden, which was another conflict. It's I can honestly say it's not something that I dwelled on. You think about it once or twice, like, you know, stuff like that, but I didn't really see any horrific things. All we saw was a mess when we got there. As I say, most of the bodies had been found, so we didn't see any of that. No, to be honest, it didn't bother me. It did when I went back for the anniversary. Then that was strange. And going round reading all the gravestones. Looking at the age of people, you know, and there was grave after grave after grave, you know, young kids.
Aberfan it's hard and it's easy to explain. I think it was the worst of all for me, because of seeing so many kids wiped out. I mean, me and what's his name, Ian Weston, we were cleaning their bodies. Now that is, I don't know. I cried, Ian cried. I ran outside and spewed up because of the mess. I mean, it's like all the flesh and everything has just been ripped away when the slag went through it. You couldn't identify. There's no way you could, without looking at these and the denture forms, you know, you could never identify them.
One of the strangest things when we got there, and you didn't realise it at first, no kids. it started to get you, like, you know, and you think, didn't notice it at first, like, you know, and you think there's something missing here. Then you realise there's no kids playing anywhere.
So soldiers do feel wholeheartedly. You stick together as if you won.
And there was one chap that I was speaking to. He lost 2 sisters and a brother. Yeah, and he'd never spoken about it at all since the day. And then he opened up to me, and that was very emotional.
Well, I look at it this way. We're supposed to be soldiers. We're trained to fight. But we do have feelings, you know. And to see so many children wiped out in one thing like that. You know, there's 116 kids just gone. That's worse than fighting, that. Just in one foul sweep, they'd gone, wiped out. So yeah, it still for those of us that were there, it still hurts. You know, we think a lot about it, quite a lot. But it's something that'll never go away. Never will. It's so if somebody mentions it, you know, it's still still there.
Now, I had 22 good years, 22 very lucky years as well in times. Things that happened to me were a lot worse than that, because they'd happened to me, and that was just something that happened. Okay, and at the time, some of the people in the regiment started resenting at first that we didn't get an invite to go back to the funeral. But I'm glad we didn't. You're 19 at the time, like, yeah. You're in the army. You know, they give you a rifle. You've got this badge wall around you with your friends and that and everything. Nothing's going to happen to you. Like, you know, you have that attitude, and it grows more and more as you get, you know, as you go on and things happen to you and you walk away from them. But it's only, yeah, as you do get older, you do realise, you know, it was such a terrible thing to happen.
It was terrible, it really was.
But you know, it was for me. It was the worst. I've had some good postings, really good. Like I said, British Guyana was the best, but no, Aberfan was bad. I think it was for everyone that was there. It was, you know. No, it was a bad too. And not. I couldn't go through that again. I don't think. No, I couldn't go through that again. Oh, that was the worst of the lot, that, I think. 116 kids. No good at all.